The ship was called the Unity, and it carried the hopes of 8 billion people across the stars. Ambassador Elena Vance stood at the observation window and watched as the vessel dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Before her spread a sight that no human had ever seen with their own eyes. The Galactic Council Station. It was massive beyond words. The station hung in the space between 3 stars, a structure so large that it made Earth's moon look like a pebble. Thousands of ships moved around it like insects around a hive. Each ship belonged to a different species. Each species had conquered the stars long before humans had learned to make fire. Elena took a deep breath. She was 52 years old, a former soldier turned diplomat, and she had spent the last 10 years preparing for this moment. Humanity had finally cracked the secret of faster-than-light travel. They had built ships that could cross the galaxy, and now they were here to take their place among the stars. Her assistant, a young man named David Chen, stepped up beside her. His face was pale. "Ambassador," he said, "we're receiving docking instructions. The council will see us in 3 hours." Elena nodded. "How's the crew?" "Nervous." "Excited." David paused. "Scared." "Good," Elena said. "That means they understand what's at stake." She turned away from the window and walked toward her quarters. She needed to review her speech one more time. She needed to make sure every word was perfect. This was humanity's first impression, and first impressions mattered. What she didn't know, what no human could have known, was that the galaxy had already made up its mind about humanity, and the verdict was not kind. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was designed to intimidate. The ceiling rose so high that clouds actually formed near the top. The floor was made of transparent crystal, and below it swam creatures from 1,000 different oceans. Representatives from 400 species sat in floating platforms that circled a central stage. Elena walked onto that stage alone. She had chosen to wear a simple black suit. No medals, no decorations, just a human being standing before the collected powers of the galaxy. The silence was absolute. She activated her translator device and began to speak. "Honored representatives of the Galactic Council," she said. "I am Elena Vance, Ambassador of the United Earth Government. I come before you today to formally request membership in this great assembly." She paused, letting her words echo through the hall. "Humanity is young. We know this. While your civilizations were building empires among the stars, we were still learning to farm our land. While you were mapping the galaxy, we were mapping our own small world. But we have learned, we have grown, and we have finally reached the stars." Elena raised her chin. "We come not as conquerors, but as partners. We come not as enemies, but as friends. We ask only for the chance to prove ourselves worthy of standing beside you." She finished her speech and waited. The silence stretched on for what felt like hours, and then, from somewhere in the upper platforms, someone laughed. It started as a single sound, a harsh, barking noise that Elena didn't recognize, but it spread. Platform after platform joined in, each species expressing amusement in its own way. Some clicked, some whistled, some made sounds that hurt Elena's ears, but they were all laughing. Elena stood perfectly still. She kept her face calm. Inside, her heart was pounding. A platform descended from the upper levels. On it stood a creature that looked like a giant crystal formation. Light refracted through its body in patterns that Elena's brain struggled to process. This was a Zorvani, one of the oldest species in the galaxy. The Zorvani's voice came through the translator as a soft, musical tone. "Human ambassador," it said. "Do you know why they laugh?" Elena kept her voice steady. "I would appreciate an explanation, honored Zorvani." The crystal creature made a sound that might have been a sigh. "They laugh because they have seen your species. They have studied your biology. They have analyzed your history." The Zorvani paused. "And they have concluded that you are amusing." "Amusing," Elena repeated. "You are soft," the Zorvani said. "Your bodies have no natural armor, no claws, no venom, no natural weapons of any kind. A child of the HFY could kill a dozen of your strongest warriors." Elena said nothing. "You are weak," the Zorvani continued. "Your muscles are adapted for a low-gravity world. You tire easily. You break easily. You die easily." Still, Elena said nothing. "And perhaps most amusing of all," the Zorvani said, "you are broken. Your species requires unconsciousness for 8 hours of every day. 8 hours. You shut down your minds and lie helpless while the universe continues around you. The HFY do not sleep. The Vorn do not sleep. The crystalline collective does not sleep. But humans must sleep, or they go mad. The laughter in the hall grew louder. Elena waited for it to die down. Then she spoke. Is that all? The Zorvani tilted its crystalline head. Is that not enough? I simply want to make sure I understand, Elena said. You believe that humanity is too weak to join the Galactic Council. You believe that we are prey animals who have somehow stumbled into technology. That is an accurate summary. Yes, Elena nodded slowly. I see. And what would humanity need to do to change your minds? Another platform descended. This one carried a creature that made Elena's survival instincts scream. The Kethvari was 7 feet tall. Its body was covered in scales that looked like they could stop bullets. Its eyes were red and slitted, and they fixed on Elena with the focus of a predator examining prey. Its hands ended in claws that curved like sickles. Nothing, the Kethvari said. Its voice was a deep rumble that Elena felt in her chest. You can do nothing to change our minds, human. You are what you are. Weak, soft, prey. The creature's mouth opened in what might have been a smile, revealing rows of teeth like broken glass. The Kethvari supremacy has been the apex predator of this galaxy for 1 million years, it said. We have conquered 47 species. We have hunted creatures that would make your nightmares seem pleasant. And I tell you now, human, that your species is the least threatening thing I have ever seen. Elena looked up at the Kethvari. It was nearly twice her height. It was armored and clawed and evolved for killing. And it was looking at her the way a lion might look at a mouse. She smiled. Thank you for your assessment, she said. I will relay it to my government. The Kethvari's eyes narrowed. You smile. Why do you smile, pray? I smile, Elena said, because I am grateful for your honesty. It is good to know where we stand. She turned and walked off the stage. Behind her, the laughter continued. 400 species watched the small, soft human walk away, and they all agreed on one thing. Humanity was a joke, a cosmic accident, a species that would be forgotten within a generation. None of them noticed that Elena's smile never wavered. None of them understood what that smile meant. The Unity left the Galactic Council station 3 hours later. Elena sat alone in her quarters, staring at the wall. David entered quietly and stood waiting. The crew wants to know what happened, he said. They rejected us, Elena said. They laughed at us. They called us weak and soft and prey. David's hands clenched into fists. Those arrogant. No. Elena cut him off. They're not arrogant. They're honest. By their standards, they're absolutely right. We are weak. We are soft. A single Kethvari could probably kill everyone on this ship. David stared at her. Then what do we do? Elena turned to face him. Her eyes were calm, focused. The eyes of a woman who had seen war and survived it. We go home, she said. We tell Earth what happened, and we start preparing. Preparing for what? Elena stood and walked to the window. The stars stretched out before her, countless points of light in the infinite dark. They made a mistake today, she said softly. They looked at our bodies and saw weakness. They looked at our history and saw chaos. They looked at our need for sleep and saw vulnerability. She paused. They never bothered to look deeper. Deeper. Elena turned back to David. They don't know what humans have done to each other. They don't know about our wars. They don't know about the things we invented to kill our own kind. They don't know about the weapons we've banned because they were too horrible to use. She walked past him toward the door. They think we're prey, she said. They think we're harmless, and that means they're not afraid of us. She stopped at the door and looked back. That's their mistake, because by the time they realize what humanity really is, it will be too late. On Earth, the news of humanity's rejection spread quickly. Some people were angry, some were sad, some wanted to go to war immediately, to show the galaxy what humans could do. The United Earth government chose a different path. In secret facilities around the planet, scientists began to study every piece of information they had gathered about the alien species. They analyzed the Kethvari's biology, looking for weaknesses. They studied the Zorvani's crystalline structure. They mapped the psychology of 100 different species. In military bases hidden from satellite view, soldiers began training in new ways. They learned to fight in complete darkness. They learned to survive without sleep for days. They learned to adapt to any environment, any enemy, any situation. In space, New ships were being built, not the large, proud vessels that other species used. These ships were small and dark. They were designed to hide, to wait, to strike without warning. They were hunter ships, predator ships, and in the halls of government, leaders made quiet decisions. They approved projects with code names that would never appear in any public record. They authorized weapons that they hoped would never need to be used. They prepared for a war that they hoped would never come, but they prepared nonetheless, because Elena Vance had understood something that the Galactic Council had not. The galaxy operated on a simple rule: the strong dominated the weak. The predators ruled the prey. It had always been this way. It would always be this way, unless someone changed the rules. 18 months passed. On a small colony world orbiting Proxima Centauri, 12,000 humans built their lives under an alien sun. They were farmers and engineers, teachers and doctors. They had left Earth to start fresh, to build something new. They had no idea that they were about to become a lesson. A Kethvari fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. 12 warships, each one bristling with weapons. They moved toward the colony world with the casual confidence of predators approaching prey. Admiral Vexthar the Unbroken stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the planet grow larger in the view screen. He was old for a Kethvari, nearly 200 years old. He had led 1,000 hunts. He had killed 1 million creatures. And now he had been given the honor of teaching humanity its place. "Open a channel," he commanded. His communications officer obeyed. Vexthar's voice broadcast across the colony. "Humans of Proxima Centauri 3, he said. "I am Admiral Vexer of the Kethvari Supremacy. You have built your nest in space that does not belong to you. This is not allowed. You will surrender your colony to Kethvari rule. You will submit to our authority. You will serve our empire." He paused, letting his words sink in. "If you refuse, we will land our troops and take your colony by force. Your people will be killed. Your buildings will be burned. Your very memory will be erased from history." He bared his teeth in a smile. "You have 1 hour to decide." He closed the channel and turned to his officers. "They will surrender," he said confidently. "Prey always surrenders." The hour passed. No response came from the colony. Vexthar frowned. This was unusual. Most species begged for mercy within minutes. But these humans were silent. "Scan the colony," he ordered. His sensors officer worked at his console. "Admiral, the colony appears empty. All life signs are underground." "Underground?" "Yes, Admiral. They have bunkers, deep underground shelters. The entire population has moved into them." Vexthar's frown deepened. This was also unusual. Prey usually ran. They didn't hide. "No matter," he said. "We will dig them out. Prepare the landing forces." 3,000 Kethvari warriors loaded into dropships. They were the finest soldiers in the galaxy. Each one was a perfect killing machine, trained from birth to hunt and kill. They carried weapons that could level buildings. They wore armor that could stop human bullets. They descended toward the colony in perfect formation. They landed in the central square as the twin suns began to set, and they found nothing. The colony was empty. The buildings were dark. The streets were silent. Commander Krathvex, leader of the ground forces, reported to Admiral Vexthar. "The prey has gone to ground," he said. "They are hiding in their tunnels." "Then hunt them," Vexthar replied. "Flush them out. Show them that there is no escape from the Kethvari." Krathvex smiled. With pleasure, he organized his troops into hunting packs, 100 soldiers in each pack. They spread out across the colony, searching for entrances to the underground bunkers. The sun set, darkness fell, and then the lights went out. Every power source in the colony died at once. The street lights went dark. The building lights went dark. Even the emergency beacons on the Kethvari dropships went dark. The night became absolute. Commander Krathvex activated his infrared vision. Kethvari could see in the dark. It was one of their many advantages. But when he looked around, he saw nothing. No heat signatures, no movement, just empty buildings and empty streets. "All units, report," he commanded. One by one, his pack leaders responded. They had found nothing. The humans had vanished. "Continue the search," Krathvex ordered. "They must be." He stopped. One of his pack leaders hadn't responded. "Pack 7. Report." Silence. "Pack 7. Respond immediately." Nothing. Krathvex felt something he hadn't felt in a very long time. It was a small thing, barely noticeable. A cold sensation at the base of his skull. He told himself it wasn't fear. Pack 6, move to Pack 7's last known position. Pack 5, provide support. Understood, Commander. He waited, and waited. Pack 6, report. Silence. Pack 5. Report. Nothing. 30 soldiers had just vanished without a sound. Krathvex opened a channel to the flagship. Admiral, we have a situation. Report. We've lost contact with 3 hunting packs. 90 soldiers. No distress signals. No weapon fire. They just disappeared. There was a long pause. Continue the operation, Vexthor finally said. Find the humans. Kill them all. Understood. Krathvex gathered his remaining forces. 700 soldiers formed a defensive circle in the colony's central square. They watched the darkness with their infrared eyes, searching for any sign of movement. One of his officers approached. Commander, I'm detecting a heat signature. Very faint. Inside that building. Krathvex turned. It was a small structure, some kind of human storage facility. Take a squad. Investigate. 10 soldiers moved toward the building. They were the best of the best. They had killed 1,000 creatures. They entered the building, and then they started screaming. It lasted only seconds. The screams cut off abruptly, replaced by silence. Krathvex stared at the building. What? He whispered. Something flew out of the building and landed at his feet. He looked down. It was a Kethvari head, and carved into the scales of its forehead were human words. Krathvex's translator processed them automatically. You are not hunters here. The darkness around the square came alive. They came from everywhere at once. From the buildings, from the ground, from the sky. They wore suits that hid their heat signatures. They moved with a speed and coordination that the Kethvari had never seen. And they were not fighting like prey. They were fighting like monsters. The battle lasted until dawn. When the twin suns rose, 3,000 Kethvari soldiers were dead. Their bodies lay scattered across the colony, killed by weapons and methods that the galaxy had never seen. Chemical agents that crystallized their blood, sonic weapons that shattered their hearing, traps that exploited every weakness in their biology. The survivors, there were only 47, found themselves gathered in the central square. They were surrounded by humans in black armor. Humans who should have been prey. Humans who had killed the galaxy's apex predators like they were nothing. A human woman stepped forward and removed her helmet. It was Ambassador Elena Vance. You will return to your ships, she said calmly. You will leave this system, and you will deliver a message to your admiral. Krathvex, broken and bleeding, looked up at her. What message? Elena smiled. It was the same smile she had worn in the Galactic Council. The smile that nobody had understood. Now, finally, Krathvex understood it. It was the smile of a predator. Tell him, Elena said, that the prey have learned to hunt. She turned and walked away into the light of the rising suns. Behind her, carved into the largest building in the colony, was a message that would soon spread across the entire galaxy. You hunt in daylight. We were forged in the dark. The Kethvari survivors stumbled back to their ships and fled, and for the first time in 1,000,000 years, the apex predators of the galaxy knew what it felt like to be afraid. Admiral Vexthar the Unbroken sat alone in his quarters aboard the flagship. The lights were dim, the air was cold, and for the first time in 200 years of life, his hands were shaking. 3,000 soldiers, the finest warriors the Kethvari supremacy had ever produced, gone, killed by creatures that the galaxy had called prey. He had watched the recordings from the survivors' armor cameras. He had seen what the humans had done, and he had not slept since. His door chimed. Enter, he said, his voice hollow. Commander Krathvex walked in. The young officer looked different now. The confidence was gone from his eyes. Something else had taken its place. Something that Vexthar recognized because he felt it too. Fear. The Supremacy Council demands your report, Krathvex said. Vexthar nodded slowly. I know. I have been preparing it. What will you tell them? The Admiral stood and walked to his window. The stars burned cold and distant in the void. I will tell them the truth, he said. We made a mistake. A terrible mistake. We looked at the humans and saw soft bodies. We saw creatures who needed sleep. We saw prey. He paused. We never saw the predators hiding inside. Krathvex moved to stand beside him. Admiral, I have studied the recordings. The weapons they used, the tactics. I have never seen anything like it. Neither have I. They knew our weaknesses, every single one. The chemical agents they used were designed specifically to attack our blood chemistry. The sonic weapons were tuned to frequencies that damage our hearing. The traps were built for creatures of our size and weight. Krathvex's voice dropped to a whisper. They studied us, Admiral. They studied us and built weapons just for us. Vexthar closed his eyes. I know. In 18 months, just 18 months since we rejected them, they learned everything about us and built an arsenal designed to kill us. I know. What are they, Admiral? Vexthar turned to face his officer. They are what we should have seen from the beginning. They are survivors. Their planet tried to kill them with ice ages and plagues and natural disasters, and they survived. They tried to kill each other with weapons that would make our wars look like children's games, and they survived. They are not prey. Krathvex. They never were. He walked to his desk and activated his console. They are something far worse, he said. They are predators who learned to look like prey. The news of Proxima Centauri 3 spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. At first, nobody believed it. The Kethvari? Defeated? By humans? The soft, sleeping creatures who had been laughed out of the Galactic Council? Impossible. It had to be propaganda. It had to be a lie. But then the evidence arrived. The recordings from the Kethvari armor cameras were transmitted to every major news network in the galaxy. Billions of beings watched as the proud warriors of the supremacy were hunted through the darkness. They watched the Kethvari scream. They watched them beg. They watched them die. And they watched a human woman smile and say, "The prey have learned to hunt." The Galactic Council called an emergency session. The Great Hall was silent now. No laughter, no jokes. 400 species sat in their floating platforms and stared at the central stage, where a holographic display showed the final message carved into the colony building. You hunt in daylight. We were forged in the dark. The Zorvani delegate descended to the main floor. The crystal creature's light patterns were chaotic, disturbed. We have made a grave error, it said. We dismissed the humans as irrelevant. We allowed the Kethvari to attack them without consequence. And now we must face what we have created. The Kethvari delegation's platform remained empty. Admiral Vexthar had been recalled to the homeworld. He would face judgment for his failure. A Vorn representative spoke next. The Vorn were insectoid creatures, hive-minded and logical. We have analyzed the human tactics used at Proxima Centauri 3. The results are concerning. Concerning how? Asked a delegate from the Crystalline Collective. The humans employed a form of warfare that we have never encountered. They call it guerrilla tactics. Instead of meeting the Kethvari in open battle, they hid. They waited. They struck from shadows and then vanished before any response could be made. They targeted officers and communication systems first, creating confusion and fear among the enemy troops. The Vorn paused. But most concerning is their use of psychological warfare. The humans did not simply kill the Kethvari. They terrorized them. They left messages. They took trophies. They allowed survivors to escape specifically so those survivors would spread fear. The Vorn's antennae twitched. This is not the behavior of prey. This is not even the behavior of predators. This is the behavior of something else entirely. What do you mean? The Zorvani asked. Among their own kind, the Vorn said. Humans have a word for this type of warfare. They call it terrorism. It is designed not to win battles but to break the enemy's will to fight, to make them afraid, to make them doubt everything they believed about their own strength. Silence filled the hall. The Kethvari have been the apex predators of this galaxy for 1 million years. The Vorn continued. In a single night, the humans made them feel like prey. The psychological impact of this cannot be overstated. The Kethvari are now afraid, and fear spreads. 6 months passed. Human ships began appearing at the edges of alien systems. They were small vessels, dark and silent, running without active sensors or communication signals. They would drift into a system, stay for a few days, and then vanish. They never attacked. They never communicated. They just watched. On the Kethvari homeworld, reports came in from border colonies. Human ships had been spotted near 3 different systems. No hostile actions. No demands. Just silent observation. The new admiral of the Kethvari fleet, a female warrior named Sithra, studied the reports with growing unease. What are they doing? Her aide asked. They are hunting, Sithra said. Hunting? But they haven't attacked anyone. Not yet. Sithra pulled up a star map. Look at the pattern. They are mapping our defenses, learning our patrol routes, studying our response times. She traced a claw across the display. They are patient. They are watching. And when they finally strike, she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. On 100 different worlds, the same scene played out. Human ships watching, waiting, silent, and then the probes started arriving. Small objects, no bigger than a fist, would drift into populated systems and broadcast a single recording. The same recording every time. It showed the Battle of Proxima Centauri 3. It showed the Keth Vari screaming. It showed the human woman smiling. And at the end, it showed a new message. We are watching. We are waiting. We are everywhere. The effect on galactic civilization was immediate and dramatic. Species that had laughed at humanity began to lock down their borders. Military budgets increased across the galaxy. Diplomatic missions were sent to Earth, requesting meetings, seeking to understand these strange new predators. The humans accepted some meetings. They rejected others. They made no demands. They offered no threats. They simply existed, watching, waiting, a constant presence at the edge of known space. And everywhere, the fear grew. The Zorvani were among the first to seek understanding. They sent their finest scholar, a being named Crystal Wind, to Earth. Its mission was simple: learn everything about humanity, find out what they really were, find out what they wanted. Crystal Wind spent 3 years on Earth. It visited their cities and their wilderness. It studied their history and their art. It spoke with their leaders and their common people. It observed their children at play and their soldiers at war. When Crystal Wind returned to the Galactic Council, it requested a private session with the senior representatives of the 20 most powerful species. I have learned what the humans are, Crystal Wind said. I have learned why they are so dangerous, and I have learned why we should be very, very afraid. The representatives leaned forward. Tell us, the Vorn speaker said. Crystal Wind's light patterns shifted into a complex configuration that the translator interpreted as deep disturbance. The humans are persistence predators, it said. On their homeworld, they evolved to hunt by chasing their prey until the prey's heart gave out from exhaustion. They cannot run as fast as their prey. They cannot fight as well as their prey, but they can follow their prey for days without stopping. They simply never give up. We knew this, a Keth Vari representative said impatiently. It is why we considered them weak. They needed tricks to hunt because they lacked natural weapons. You understand nothing, Crystal Wind said. The persistence hunt is not a weakness. It is the key to everything humans are. Their bodies are designed for endurance, not speed. They can survive wounds that would kill most species. They can function without sleep for days when necessary. They can adapt to almost any environment. And most importantly, the crystal being paused. They never stop. Once a human decides to pursue something, a goal, an enemy, a dream, they will pursue it until they succeed, or they die. There is no middle ground. There is no surrender. The representatives shifted uncomfortably. But there is something worse, Crystal Wind continued. Something that makes humans unique in all the galaxy. What? They are the only species we have ever encountered that has nearly destroyed itself. Multiple times, with weapons of their own invention. Silence. The humans have spent their entire existence fighting each other, Crystal Wind said. They have developed weapons that can destroy cities in an instant, poisons that can kill millions, diseases that can wipe out entire populations, and they have used these weapons on themselves, against their own kind. The Zorvani's light patterns became chaotic. The tactics they used against the Keth Vari, the psychological warfare, the targeted killing, the terror, those are not new inventions. The humans have been perfecting those techniques for 10,000 years. Every horror they unleashed on Proxima Centauri 3, they learned it by doing it to each other first. That is, impossible, a delegate said. No species could survive such self-destruction, and yet they did, Crystal Wind said. They survived ice ages that covered their planet. They survived plagues that killed most of their population. They survived wars that should have ended their civilization. And every time, they came back stronger. They learned. They adapted. They evolved. The crystal being moved to the center of the room. Do you understand now? The Keithvari thought they were apex predators because they have claws and scales and strength. The humans have something more dangerous. They have 10,000 years of practice at killing intelligent beings. They have weapons designed specifically to kill thinking creatures. They have tactics developed over centuries of constant warfare. Crystalwind's voice dropped low. We are not dealing with a young species that stumbled into the stars. We are dealing with the most experienced warriors in the galaxy. The only difference is that until now, they have only fought each other. Now, for the first time, they have a common enemy. Us, the Vorn speaker said. Yes, Crystalwind agreed. Us. On Earth, Ambassador Elena Vance met with the Unified Military Command of the United Earth Government. They gathered in a deep underground bunker, surrounded by screens showing the positions of every human ship in the galaxy. There were more ships now. Many more. The factories had been working constantly for the past 2 years. The Galactic Council has requested a meeting, General Marcus Cole said. He was a hard man with gray hair and scars on his face. He had fought in 3 wars before first contact. Now he commanded all of humanity's military forces. They want to negotiate. Negotiate what? Elena asked. They're afraid. They've seen what we did on Proxima 3. They've seen our ships watching their borders. They want to know what we want. Elena smiled. It was the same smile she always wore. Patient, calm, dangerous. What we want, she said, is for them to understand what they created. Meaning, they had a chance to accept us as partners. They had a chance to treat us as equals. Instead, they laughed at us. They called us prey. They sent the Keithvari to teach us our place. Elena's smile faded. They made a choice. Now they have to live with the consequences. So what do we do? Elena walked to the main display. It showed the galaxy, 400 species spread across millions of worlds, and at the edge, a small cluster of blue dots. Human space. Tiny. Insignificant. We continue watching, she said. We continue waiting. We let the fear grow. Fear is a weapon, General. The most powerful weapon in the universe. It doesn't matter how strong you are if you're too afraid to fight. And if they attack us anyway? Elena turned to face him. Then we show them what humanity really is. We show them the wars we fought among ourselves. We show them the weapons we invented to kill our own kind. We show them why we banned chemical weapons and biological weapons and nuclear weapons, not because they didn't work, but because they worked too well. She walked toward the door. The galaxy wanted to treat us like prey, she said over her shoulder. Now they get to find out what happens when the prey turns around and starts hunting. And I promise you, General, they won't like what they find. Across the galaxy, the fear continued to spread. On the Keithvari homeworld, the military prepared for a war they didn't know how to fight. How do you battle an enemy that refuses to meet you in the open? How do you hunt a predator that hides in the dark? On the Zorvani crystal fields, the elders debated whether to seek alliance with the humans or destroy them before they grew stronger. Neither option seemed likely to succeed. On 1,000 worlds, 1 billion beings looked up at the stars and wondered, were the humans watching? Were they there, hidden in the dark between the stars, waiting for the moment to strike? The galaxy had operated on a simple rule for millions of years. The strong dominated the weak. The predators ruled the prey. It was the natural order. It was the way things had always been. But the humans had changed the rules. They had shown that strength was not about size or claws or natural weapons. Strength was about will, about determination, about the refusal to give up, no matter the cost. The Keithvari had been apex predators for 1 million years. The humans had been forging themselves in the fire of constant war for 10,000 years. And now, finally, the galaxy was beginning to understand which was more dangerous. The old order was dying. Something new was being born. And in the dark between the stars, human ships waited in silence, patient as death, watching the galaxy learn the one lesson that humanity had always known. In the end, survival doesn't go to the strongest. It goes to those who refuse to die. The prey had become the predator, and the hunt was only beginning. The Keithvari High Council met in the Hall of Conquest. It was the most sacred place in the supremacy, a massive chamber decorated with the skulls and bones of every species the Keithvari had ever conquered. 47 species, 47 victories, 1 million years of absolute dominance. Supreme Commander Gorath stood before the assembled war leaders. He was the oldest living Keithvari, nearly 300 years old. His scales were scarred from 100 battles. His eyes burned with the fire of a predator who had never known defeat, until now. "The humans must be destroyed," he said. His voice echoed through the hall like thunder. "They have humiliated us. They have made the Kethvari look weak. This cannot stand." The war leaders growled in agreement. Their pride had been wounded. Their reputation had been damaged. Every species in the galaxy had seen the recordings from Proxima Centauri 3. Every species had seen Kethvari warriors screaming in the dark. "We will assemble the largest fleet in our history," Goreth continued. "We will gather allies from across the galaxy. Every species that fears what the humans might become will join us. And together, we will wipe humanity from existence." Admiral Sithra stepped forward. She had been studying the humans for the past 2 years. She had learned things that kept her awake at night. "Supreme Commander," she said carefully, "I urge caution." The hall fell silent. No one spoke against the Supreme Commander. Goreth turned his burning eyes toward her. "Caution? You would have us show weakness? I would have us understand our enemy before we attack them." Sithra activated a holographic display. "I have been analyzing human history, their wars, their weapons, their tactics. What I have found disturbs me. Nothing about those soft creatures should disturb a Kethvari. Then look at this." The display showed images of human weapons. Not the ones used at Proxima 3. Older ones. More terrible ones. "This is what humans call a nuclear weapon," Sithra said. "A single device can destroy an entire city. They invented it 80 years ago. They have since built enough of these weapons to destroy their own planet several times over." The war leaders stirred uneasily. "This is called chemical warfare. Humans developed gases that cause the body to dissolve while the victim is still alive. They banned these weapons because they considered them too cruel to use even against their enemies." More stirring. "And this," Sithra said, "is biological warfare. Diseases designed in laboratories to kill specific populations. Plagues engineered to spread through entire civilizations. The humans have been perfecting these weapons for over a century." She turned off the display. "The weapons they used against us on Proxima 3 were not their worst weapons. They were not even close. The humans held back, Supreme Commander. They showed us mercy." "Mercy," Goreth snarled. "They killed 3,000 of our warriors, and they could have killed millions. They could have released a plague tailored to Kethvari biology. They could have bombarded the planet from orbit. Instead, they fought face to face. They gave us a chance." Sithra's voice dropped. "They were teaching us a lesson, warning us, showing us what they were capable of without revealing everything they could do." The hall was completely silent now. "If we attack them with everything we have," Sithra continued, "and we fail to destroy them completely, they will stop holding back. And I do not think we would survive what comes next." Goreth stood motionless for a long moment. Then he laughed, a harsh, barking sound that echoed through the hall. "You are afraid of them," he said. "You, a Kethvari warrior, are afraid of soft little creatures who need to sleep." "Yes," Sithra said simply. "I am afraid, because I have studied them, because I understand what they are, and I think any intelligent being who truly understands humanity should be afraid." Goreth's laughter died. His eyes narrowed. "Then you are no longer fit to serve the supremacy," he said. "Guards, remove this coward from my sight." Sithra did not resist as the guards took her arms. She had said what needed to be said. Whether anyone listened was beyond her control. As she was led from the hall, she heard Goreth giving orders. A massive fleet, a coalition of species, the complete extinction of humanity. She closed her eyes. They were all going to die. The Kethvari, the coalition, perhaps even the galaxy itself. Because Goreth could not accept that there was something more dangerous than his species. And humanity, she knew, had been waiting for exactly this moment. The coalition gathered over the following months. 12 species committed their military forces to the cleansing fleet. The Kethvari provided the core 20,000 warships crewed by the finest warriors in the galaxy. The Vorn contributed 10,000 vessels and 2 million soldiers. The Crystalline Collective added their planet crackers, massive weapons capable of destroying worlds. Other species joined for their own reasons. The Molavi wanted human technology. The Grass Lords wanted human worlds for colonization. The Silence sought human slaves, 40,000 ships, 2 million ground troops. the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history, and behind them all, watching from the shadows, the rest of the galaxy waited to see what would happen. Some hoped the coalition would succeed. Some secretly hoped it would fail. All of them were afraid. The United Earth government received word of the coalition's formation through their spy networks. The information reached the War Council within hours. General Marcus Cole stood before the assembled military leaders. His face was grim. 40,000 ships, he said. 2 million soldiers. Planet crackers capable of destroying Earth itself. They're not coming to teach us a lesson this time. They're coming to end us. The room was silent. Our current fleet strength is 8,000 ships. Our ground forces number 500,000. We are outnumbered 5-1 in space and 4-1 on the ground. More silence. By any standard military calculation, we should surrender. We cannot win a conventional war against these numbers. Admiral Chen spoke up. Then what do we do? Cole smiled. It was a cold smile. A dangerous smile. The smile of a man who had already made his peace with what was coming. We stop fighting a conventional war, he said. We stop pretending to be something we're not. We stop holding back. He activated the main display. A single word appeared. Prometheus. Project Prometheus has been in development since first contact, Cole explained. It contains everything we swore we would never use again. The weapons we banned after the Third World War. The tactics we considered too terrible even for our enemies. The things we hid away because we were ashamed of what they said about us. He looked around the room. The galaxy thinks they know what humanity is capable of. They've seen Proxima 3. They've studied our history. But they've only seen the surface. They don't know about the things we buried. The things we tried to forget. The darkness that lives inside every human being. Cole's voice hardened. They wanted to see us as monsters. Fine. We'll show them monsters. We'll show them what humanity really is when we stop being afraid of ourselves. Ambassador Elena Vance stepped forward. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sad. If we do this, she said quietly, there's no going back. The galaxy will never see us as anything but monsters again. We will become the very thing they feared. Maybe, Cole said. But we'll be alive. Our children will be alive. Our species will survive. And isn't that what matters? Elena was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. Do it. The coalition fleet assembled at the edge of human space. 40,000 ships hung in the void like a wall of metal and death. Inside those ships, 2 million warriors prepared for battle. They had trained for this moment. They had dreamed of it. Supreme Commander Gorath stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the human border on his displays. In a few hours, his forces would cross that border. In a few days, they would reach Earth, and then humanity would finally learn its place. His communications officer approached. Supreme Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet. Put it through. The main view screen flickered. A human face appeared older, weathered, with cold eyes and gray hair. General Marcus Cole. Coalition Fleet, Cole said. This is General Marcus Cole of the United Earth Defense Force. You have assembled your forces to destroy humanity. Before you proceed, I have a message for you. Gorath laughed. Speak your last words, human. These are not my last words. They are a warning. One final chance for you to turn back. We will never turn back. We will destroy you. Cole nodded slowly. I expected that answer, but I wanted to give you the choice, so that later, when you are dying, you will know that you chose this fate. His eyes seemed to look directly at Gorath. You have mistaken our restraint for weakness. You thought that because we held back at Proxima 3, we were showing you our limits. You were wrong. We were showing you mercy. We were giving you a chance to understand what you were dealing with before things went too far. Cole leaned forward. Things are about to go too far. The transmission ended. Gorath snorted. Human bluster. They hope to frighten us with words because they cannot defeat us with weapons. He turned to his officers. All ships, advance. Begin the invasion of human space. 40,000 ships moved forward like a wave of death. They crossed the border. They entered human space, and the darkness swallowed them. The first attacks came without warning. Automated weapons platforms that had been hidden for years activated and fired. They were small things, barely visible against the backdrop of space. But they carried weapons that the coalition had never seen. Ships began to die, not from missiles or energy beams. They died from weapons that targeted their crews directly. viral agents that had been engineered for each species in the coalition, gas that killed Kethvari, radiation that destroyed Vorn nervous systems, sonic frequencies that shattered crystalline bodies. The coalition's formation began to break apart as ships tried to avoid the hidden weapons. Commanders screamed orders. Crews panicked. And in the chaos, the human ships attacked. They came from everywhere and nowhere. Small, fast vessels that struck and vanished before anyone could respond. They targeted command ships, communication arrays, engine systems. They didn't try to destroy the coalition fleet, they tried to blind it, cripple it, drive it mad with fear, and they succeeded. Within hours, the coalition fleet had lost all coordination. Ships fired on each other in the confusion. Commanders couldn't communicate with their forces. Entire squadrons vanished without explanation. Gorath stood on his bridge, watching his carefully planned invasion collapse into chaos. How? He whispered. How are they doing this? His tactical officer was trembling. Sir, we're detecting human ships inside our formation. They were already here when we arrived. They were waiting for us. That's impossible. We scanned this area. There was nothing here. They must have been hiding, running silent, waiting in the dark, running silent, waiting in the dark. The words from Proxima 3 echoed in Gorath's mind. We were forged in the dark. He finally understood. The humans hadn't been watching from the edges of the galaxy because they were afraid to come closer. They had been waiting, preparing, turning the void itself into a weapon. The darkness between the stars had always been their territory, and now the coalition had walked right into it. All ships, retreat, Gorath ordered. His voice was hoarse. Get us out of here. But the retreat was almost as deadly as the advance. Human ships followed them, picking off stragglers. Mines appeared in their path. Weapons, platforms that they had passed on the way in now attacked them from behind. By the time the surviving coalition ships escaped human space, they had lost 15,000 vessels, more than a third of their fleet, and they hadn't even reached the first human colony. The survivors gathered at a safe distance from the border. The commanders met aboard Gorath's flagship to assess the disaster. We cannot win a conventional engagement, Admiral Sithra said. She had been released from custody when the magnitude of the defeat became clear. I tried to tell you. The humans do not fight conventional wars. They fight to win at any cost. Then how do we defeat them? A Vorn commander demanded. I don't know if we can. The words hung in the air like poison. There must be a way, Gorath said. His voice was quieter now. The arrogance was gone. No species is unbeatable. The humans believe that they are, Sithra said. More importantly, they fight as if they are. They have a saying, death before dishonor. They would rather die than surrender. They would rather destroy everything, including themselves, than accept defeat. She pulled up a human historical record. During one of their ancient wars, a human city was besieged by enemies. Instead of surrendering, the inhabitants burned their own city to the ground with themselves inside. They chose death over submission. She paused. This is not an isolated incident. Their history is full of such examples. Humans do not surrender. They do not give up. They fight until they win or they die. Then we will kill them all, Gorath said. Can we? We have already lost 15,000 ships. We have not killed a single human. We have not even reached their worlds, and they have not yet used their worst weapons. Sithra's voice dropped. What happens when they stop holding back completely? What happens when they decide that winning is more important than their own survival? No one answered, because no one wanted to think about what the answer might be. Back on Earth, General Cole reviewed the battle data. The first engagement had gone exactly as planned. The coalition fleet was damaged and demoralized. The element of surprise had been achieved, but he knew this was only the beginning. The coalition still had 25,000 ships. They still had over 1 million soldiers. They would regroup. They would adapt. They would come again, and next time, humanity would need to do worse things. Cole walked to his window and looked out at the night sky. Somewhere out there, alien commanders were planning humanity's extinction. Somewhere out there, billions of beings were watching to see if the soft little humans could survive. He thought about the weapons they hadn't used yet, the biological agents designed to wipe out entire species, the psychological warfare programs that could drive whole populations insane, the doomsday devices that could sterilize worlds. He thought about what using those weapons would mean, what it would make humanity become. And he thought about his grandchildren, sleeping peacefully in their beds, dreaming of a future that might never come if he failed. "Forgive me," he whispered to no one in particular. "Forgive us for what we're about to do." Then he turned back to his desk and began planning the next phase of the war. The Coalition wanted to see monsters. Humanity would give them monsters, and the galaxy would learn, once and for all, that some prey should never be hunted, because when you push humanity into a corner, when you threaten everything they love, when you leave them no choice but to fight or die, they become something terrible, something unstoppable, something that will haunt the nightmares of civilizations for 10,000 years. They become human, and nothing in the universe is more dangerous than that. The war lasted 11 months. Historians would later call it the most one-sided conflict in galactic history. Not because of the numbers the Coalition had superior forces throughout, not because of technology many species had weapons that should have defeated humanity easily. The war was one-sided because of something else entirely. The humans refused to fight fair. The Coalition expected battles. They expected fleets meeting in open space, exchanging fire until one side retreated. They expected ground invasions where soldiers fought soldiers. They expected war as the galaxy had always known it, bloody, yes, but honorable. Following rules, following traditions that had governed warfare for millions of years. The humans had no interest in any of that. They fought like nightmares. The first major offensive after the initial disaster was led by the Vorn Collective. They had analyzed the failed Coalition attack and identified the problem: the human traps and hidden weapons. The solution, they reasoned, was simple. Send scouts ahead, clear the way, advance slowly and carefully. 2,000 Vorn ships moved into human space, scanning for threats, destroying any weapons platforms they found. They moved methodically, professionally, leaving nothing to chance. After 3 weeks, they reached a small human mining colony in an asteroid field. The colony was lightly defended, only a dozen ships and a few thousand inhabitants. The Vorn commander decided this would be an easy first victory, something to rebuild Coalition morale. He ordered his troops to land. 10,000 Vorn soldiers descended on the colony. They were insectoid creatures, hive-minded and coordinated, able to communicate instantly through their collective consciousness. They were considered the finest ground troops in the galaxy. They found the colony empty. The inhabitants had evacuated days ago. The buildings were abandoned. The mining equipment was silent. But they found something else. In the center of the colony, there was a small device, a transmitter. It was broadcasting a message on repeat. "You entered our home. Now we enter yours." At that exact moment, 12 human ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel above the Vorn homeworld. They weren't warships. They were medical vessels, converted into something terrible. Their cargo holds were filled with biological agents, engineered viruses designed specifically for Vorn biology. As the Vorn fleet rushed back to defend their world, the human ships released their cargo into the atmosphere. The virus spread through the hive-mind connection. Every Vorn on the planet was infected within hours. And because the Vorn shared consciousness, because they were all connected, the terror of the dying spread to every Vorn everywhere. 10 billion Vorn died in 3 days. The survivors were cut off from their hive mind, isolated, alone, driven half-mad by the sudden silence in their heads. The Vorn Collective surrendered unconditionally. The humans accepted. They provided medical aid. They helped rebuild. They showed mercy to a defeated enemy. But the message was clear: attack humanity, and we will hurt you in ways you cannot imagine. The Crystalline Collective was next. They believed themselves immune to human tactics. They were silicon-based life forms, immune to biological weapons. They didn't breathe air. They didn't have blood that could be crystallized or nervous systems that could be disrupted. They were, by human standards, indestructible. Their fleet of 3,000 ships, including 2 planet crackers, advanced on the human colony of New Shanghai. The colony had a population of 2 million humans. The Crystalline Commander intended to use the planet crackers to destroy the world completely, to show the galaxy that humans could die just like anyone else. They never reached the colony. The human ships that intercepted them were equipped with weapons that the Crystalline had never seen. High-powered lasers that could heat crystalline bodies until they shattered. Sonic weapons tuned to resonance frequencies that caused their forms to crack and crumble. Electromagnetic pulses that disrupted the energy patterns that gave them consciousness. The Crystalline Collective learned something that day. They learned that humans didn't just study their enemy's weaknesses, they found weaknesses that the enemy didn't even know they had. 800 ships escaped the battle. The planet crackers were captured intact. The human commander sent a message to the crystalline homeworld. Your weapons are now our weapons. Would you like us to demonstrate them? The crystalline collective withdrew from the coalition. One by one, the coalition members fell. The Malawi fleet was destroyed by automated hunter-killer drones that stalked individual ships across light years of space. The drones were patient, they would follow a target for weeks, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Malawi commanders lived in constant terror, never knowing when death would find them. The grass lords surrendered after human agents released an engineered fungus on their agricultural worlds. The fungus didn't kill the grass lords, it killed their crops. Their civilization faced starvation within months. The humans offered food aid in exchange for immediate withdrawal from the war. The Silence, a species that had built its empire on slavery, found their slave populations in sudden revolt. Human agents had been working among the slaves for months, organizing them, arming them, teaching them how to fight. The Silence empire collapsed from within, and throughout it all, the psychological warfare continued. Human ships would appear above coalition worlds and broadcast recordings, not of battles, not of threats, just messages, simple statements delivered in calm voices. We know where you live. We know your children's names. We are patient. We can wait. Sleep became impossible for coalition commanders. They saw human agents in every shadow. They suspected human spies in every communication. The fear ate at them like acid. Some commanders cracked under the pressure. They made mistakes. They gave bad orders. They shot their own officers out of paranoia. Others simply disappeared. No one knew what happened to them. No bodies were found. They just vanished. The galaxy began to whisper a new word. A human word that described what was happening. Attrition. The humans weren't trying to win battles. They were trying to break their enemy's will to fight. And it was working. Supreme Commander Goreth watched his coalition crumble. 7 months into the war, only the Kethvari supremacy remained committed to the fight. The other species had surrendered, withdrawn, or been destroyed. 15,000 Kethvari ships now faced the entire human military alone. We can still win, Goreth told his war council. We are Kethvari. We do not surrender. We do not retreat. We are the apex predators of this galaxy. Admiral Sithra spoke carefully. Supreme Commander, the humans have been holding back. Every species they have defeated, they have shown mercy afterward. They want surrender, not extinction. Perhaps we should consider their terms. Their terms, Goreth roared. I have seen their terms. They want us to kneel. They want us to submit. I would rather die than see the Kethvari humiliated in such a way. Then we will die, Sithra said quietly. All of us. Every Kethvari in the galaxy. You exaggerate. Do I? Sithra activated a display. This is the human homeworld. Earth. Population, 8 billion. Military, 5 million active soldiers, 20 million reserve. Economic output, growing by 12% annually despite the war. She changed the display. This is the Kethvari homeworld. Population, 3 billion. Military, 2 million active soldiers, with no reserves because we have committed everything to this war. Economic output, declining by 8% annually because our trade routes have been disrupted. Another change. This is a projection of the war if it continues for another year. Human strength, increasing. Kethvari strength, collapsing. They are winning not by killing us, but by exhausting us. Their persistence predator nature extends to warfare. They do not need to destroy us. They just need to wait until we destroy ourselves. Goreth stared at the display. And if we surrender? He asked, his voice hollow. Then we live. Our species survives. Our children have a future. Sithra paused. It will be humiliating. It will be painful. But it will not be extinction. Goreth was silent for a long time. Then he turned away. Contact the human commander, he said. Tell them I wish to discuss terms. The final battle of the war took place above the Kethvari homeworld. But it was not much of a battle. The human fleet arrived with overwhelming force, not to destroy, but to demonstrate. 10,000 ships surrounded the planet, blocking any escape. Drop pods descended through the atmosphere. landing in the capital city. Human soldiers marched through the streets, not firing, not attacking, just present. General Marcus Cole walked into the Kethvari council chamber with a single guard. He was old. He was tired. He had ordered terrible things during the past 11 months, things that would haunt him for the rest of his life. But he had won. Supreme Commander Gorath stood waiting for him. The Kethvari was massive, 7 feet of scales and muscle and claws. He could have killed Cole with a single blow, but he didn't. "You have come to accept our surrender," Gorath said. "I have come to end the war," Cole replied. "Surrender is one way to do that." Gorath's eyes burned. "You know what you are asking. The Kethvari have never surrendered. In 1,000,000 years we have never knelt to another species. I know. You are asking us to abandon everything we believe, everything we are. I am asking you to live." Cole's voice was calm. "Your species can rebuild. Your pride can recover. But only if there are Kethvari left to do the rebuilding." Gorath was silent. "I have seen what my people can do when we stop holding back," Cole continued. "I have authorized weapons that should never exist. I have ordered tactics that will give me nightmares for the rest of my life. I do not want to do more." He stepped closer to Gorath. "The galaxy thought we were prey. Soft, weak, harmless. You taught us otherwise. You forced us to remember what we really are, a species forged in constant war, hardened by eternal struggle, capable of horrors that would make your worst nightmares seem pleasant." Cole's eyes met Gorath's. "You wanted to see the monster. You have seen it. Now let me put it back to sleep. Surrender, and the monster goes away. Keep fighting, and I will unleash things that neither of us will survive." Gorath stood motionless for a long moment. Then, slowly, the greatest warrior of the Kethvari supremacy bent his knee. "The Kethvari surrender," he said. "The war is over." The news spread across the galaxy within hours. The Kethvari, the apex predators, the unconquerable warriors, the species that had dominated the galaxy for 1,000,000 years, had surrendered to humanity. It was not just a military defeat. It was the end of an era. The old order was dead. The galaxy would never be the same. On 1,000 worlds, beings watched the recordings of Gorath kneeling before the human general. They saw the look in Gorath's eyes, not anger, not hatred, but something else, something that no one had ever seen in a Kethvari before. Respect. The humans had beaten the Kethvari not through strength, but through will, through determination, through the simple refusal to give up, no matter the cost. And in that refusal, in that terrible persistence, the galaxy finally saw what humanity really was. Not prey animals who had stumbled into technology, not soft creatures who needed sleep to survive, not a joke to be laughed at and dismissed. Humanity was a species that had spent 10,000 years fighting itself. A species that had survived everything the universe could throw at it. A species that had developed the most terrible weapons in existence and then banned them because they were too horrible to use. Until someone threatened their existence. Until someone pushed them too far. Until someone forced them to remember what they were capable of. The galaxy had wanted to see the monster inside humanity. Now they had seen it, and they would never forget. General Cole returned to Earth a hero. But he did not feel like one. He had won the war. He had saved humanity. He had secured the future for generations to come. But he had also done terrible things. He had authorized weapons that killed billions. He had ordered tactics that had driven entire species to madness. He had become the very monster that the galaxy had feared. He stood alone in his office, looking at a holographic display of the galaxy. 400 species spread across millions of worlds. And now, all of them knew what humanity was capable of. They would never trust humans again. They would never see humans as partners or friends. They would always remember the war. They would always remember the fear. Perhaps that was the price of survival. Ambassador Elena Vance entered the office quietly. She had aged during the war, lines on her face that hadn't been there before, gray in her hair that hadn't been there before. "It's done," she said. "The treaties are signed. The coalition has formally dissolved. Peace is restored." Cole nodded slowly. "At what cost? We're alive. Our people are safe. Isn't that what matters?" "I don't know anymore." Cole turned away from the display. "I've seen what we're capable of. What I'm capable of. I'm not sure I like what I see." Elena was silent for a moment. "The galaxy forced us to become monsters," she said finally. "They gave us no choice. It was become monsters or die." And now? Now we decide what kind of monsters we want to be. She walked to stand beside him. We can use our power to dominate, to conquer, to make the galaxy fear us forever, or we can use it to protect, to defend, to make sure that no other species has to go through what we went through. Cole looked at her. You think we can be something other than destroyers? I think we have to try. Elena's voice was quiet but firm. The monster is part of us now. We can't pretend it isn't there, but we can choose when to let it out and when to keep it locked away. She turned to face the galaxy display. The old order was built on predators and prey. The strong dominated the weak. We've proven that we're strong. Now we have a chance to build something different, something better. Cole considered her words. It won't be easy, he said. The galaxy will never trust us. Then we'll have to earn their trust. One day at a time. One choice at a time. Elena smiled, a tired smile, but a real one. That's what humanity does, isn't it? We endure, we adapt, we survive, and eventually, we build something worth surviving for. Cole looked at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. All right, he said. Let's build something worth surviving for. Outside the window, the stars burned cold and distant. A galaxy full of species who feared humanity. A future full of uncertainty, but also a future full of possibility. The war was over. The real work was just beginning. 10 years had passed since the war. The galaxy was different now. The old certainties were gone. The Kethvari supremacy still existed, but it was no longer supreme. The species that had once dominated through fear and strength now kept to themselves, rebuilding their shattered pride in silence. Other things had changed too. The slave empires had collapsed. The silence, once the largest slaver nation in the galaxy, had been broken from within during the war. Their former slaves now governed themselves, protected by treaties that humanity had insisted upon. The predator species, those who had built their civilizations on hunting and conquering weaker beings, had learned new ways of living, not because they wanted to, because they had no choice, because humanity was watching. Human ships patrolled the space lanes. Human stations monitored communications. Human agents worked in every government, every military, every organization of significance, not conquering, not ruling, just watching. And everyone knew what would happen if humanity saw something they didn't like. The monster was asleep, but it was never far away. Ambassador Elena Vance stood in her quarters aboard the diplomatic vessel Hope, looking at herself in the mirror. She was 62 years old now. Her hair was completely gray. The lines on her face had deepened into permanent marks of stress and worry, but her eyes were still sharp, still focused, still the eyes of the woman who had stood before the Galactic Council and smiled while they laughed at her. Today she would stand before them again, but there would be no laughter this time. Her aide, David Chen, entered the room. He was older too, no longer the nervous young man who had accompanied her on that first mission. He had been with her through everything, the rejection, the war, the long years of rebuilding afterward. The council is assembled, he said. 400 species, as requested. Every major power in the galaxy. Elena nodded. Good. They're nervous. They don't know why you called this meeting. They'll find out soon enough. David hesitated. Ambassador, Elena, are you sure about this? What you're planning to say, it will change everything. There's no going back. Elena turned to face him. There was never any going back, David. Not after what we did during the war. Not after what we showed them we were capable of. She paused. The galaxy has been waiting for 10 years to find out what humanity really wants. Today, I tell them. She walked past him toward the door. Whatever happens next, it starts now. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had been rebuilt since Elena had last seen it. The transparent floor was the same, with creatures swimming beneath it. The floating platforms still circled the central stage, but there was a new addition, a statue. It stood at the entrance to the hall, a massive representation of the Kethvari warrior Gorath, kneeling in surrender before a human figure. A reminder to everyone who entered of what had happened, of what humanity had done. Elena passed the statue without looking at it. She didn't need reminders. She stepped onto the central stage and looked up at the assembled representatives. 400 species, trillions of beings represented by the delegates floating around her. Silence, absolute, complete silence. No laughter, no whispers, not even the sound of breathing. They were afraid of her, afraid of the species she represented, afraid of what she might say. Good, she thought. Fear is a foundation. What we build on it is up to us. Honored representatives, she began. Her voice carried through the hall, translated into 1,000 languages simultaneously. Thank you for gathering at my request. I know many of you did not want to come. I know many of you would prefer to never see a human face again. She paused. I understand. What we did during the war, what we were forced to become, these things cannot be forgotten. They cannot be forgiven. I do not ask you to forget. I do not ask you to forgive. She turned slowly, looking at the assembled delegates. I ask you to listen, to understand, to decide, based on what I say today, what kind of future we will build together. The Zorvani representative, not Crystalwind, who had died during the war, but a younger being leaned forward in its platform. We are listening, Ambassador. Speak. Elena took a deep breath. 11 years ago, I stood in this hall and asked for membership in the Galactic Council. You rejected us. You called us weak, soft, prey animals who had stumbled into technology by accident. Her voice hardened. You were wrong. The words echoed through the silent hall. You looked at our bodies and saw creatures without natural weapons. You should have looked at our minds and seen creatures who invented weapons because we didn't have them. You looked at our need for sleep and saw vulnerability. You should have seen a species that learned to survive despite that vulnerability. You looked at our short lives and saw weakness. You should have seen a species that fights every single day because we know our time is limited. She walked to the edge of the stage. You measured us by your standards and found us wanting. But your standards were wrong. You measured strength in claws and scales and venom. We measure strength in will, in determination, in the refusal to give up no matter what the universe throws at us. Elena's eyes swept across the assembled delegates. For 10,000 years, we fought each other. We killed each other in numbers that would horrify you. We invented weapons of such terrible power that we had to ban them to save ourselves from extinction. We were forged in constant war not against other species, but against ourselves, against our own darkness. She paused, and then we came to the stars, and you laughed at us, and you sent your apex predators to teach us our place, and you discovered what happens when humans stop fighting each other and start fighting together. The silence in the hall was absolute. We won the war. We broke the Kethvari supremacy. We showed the galaxy that there is nothing more dangerous than a human with something to protect. Elena's voice softened. But that is not why I am here today. She turned back to the center of the stage. I am here because the war is over, but the future has not been decided. For 10 years, the galaxy has waited, wondered, feared. What will humanity do with its power? Will we become conquerors, like the Kethvari before us? Will we build an empire on the ruins of those who opposed us? Will we become the very thing we fought against? She shook her head. No, we will not. A murmur ran through the hall, surprise, confusion, disbelief. Humanity will not rule the galaxy, Elena continued. We have no interest in governance. We have no desire to tell other species how to live their lives. We fought the war to survive, not to conquer. And now that we have survived, we will return to what we have always done. Building, creating, growing. The Zorvani spoke. Then what do you want? Why have you patrolled our space for 10 years? Why do your ships watch our borders? Why do your agents work in our governments? Elena smiled. It was not the dangerous smile she had worn during the war. It was something else, something sadder, something wiser. Because we learned something during the war, she said. We learned what we are capable of when we stop holding back. We learned the monster that lives inside us, and we decided that we would rather be the monsters who protect than the monsters who destroy. She raised her head. The galaxy has always operated on a simple principle. The strong dominate the weak. The predators rule the prey. This is the natural order. This is how it has always been. Her voice hardened again. We reject that principle. The murmur in the hall grew louder. From this day forward, humanity will protect the weak. Any species that preys upon others, that enslaves, that conquers, that commits genocide will answer to us. Not in courts, not in diplomatic negotiations, not in the comfortable chambers of the Galactic Council. Elena's eyes burned with cold fire. In the dark, the hall fell silent again. We do not ask for your approval. We do not ask for your cooperation. We are telling you how things will be. If your species lives in peace with its neighbors, you have nothing to fear from humanity. If your species treats the weak with dignity and respect, we will be your friends." She paused. "But if you hurt the defenseless, if you enslave the innocent, if you destroy those who cannot protect themselves," her voice dropped to barely above a whisper, but it carried through the entire hall. "We will find you, we will hunt you, and we will show you the same mercy you showed your victims." The Keithvari representative, not Gorath, who had died 3 years after the war, broken by his defeat, stood on his platform. "You would make yourselves the judges of the galaxy?" he demanded. "You would decide what is right and wrong? What gives you that authority?" Elena turned to face him. "We took that authority," she said simply, "just as your species took authority over others for 1,000,000 years. The difference is that we do not use our power to dominate. We use it to protect. And who protects the galaxy from you?" Elena was silent for a moment. "No one," she admitted. "You will have to trust us, and I know that is difficult. I know that we have given you every reason to fear us and no reason to trust us." She walked closer to the Keithvari platform. "But consider the alternative. Consider the galaxy as it was before we arrived. The strong crushing the weak, the predators hunting the prey, entire species enslaved because they had no one to protect them, children born into bondage because their parents were conquered." Her voice hardened. "Is that the galaxy you want to return to? Is that the order you want to restore?" The Keithvari had no answer. "We are not good," Elena continued. "We know what we are. We are a species capable of terrible things. But we have chosen actively, consciously chosen to use our terrible capabilities in service of something better, to be the monster that protects the innocent, to be the darkness that hunts the darkness." She turned back to address the entire hall. "You do not have to like us. You do not have to trust us. You only have to understand us. We are human. We endure. We adapt. We survive. And we have decided that the galaxy will be better for our presence in it." The session continued for hours. Representatives asked questions. Some were hostile. Some were curious. Some were simply confused. Elena answered them all with the same calm patience. No, humanity would not interfere in internal affairs. Species could govern themselves however they chose, as long as they did not harm others. No, humanity would not demand tribute or payment. They did not seek wealth or resources. No, humanity would not share their weapons technology. The galaxy had seen what human weapons could do. Those weapons would remain in human hands. Yes, humanity would respond to requests for help. If a species was being attacked, if innocents were being harmed, humanity would intervene. Yes, humanity would hold itself to the same standards it demanded of others. If humans committed crimes against other species, those humans would face justice. Finally, as the session drew to a close, the Zorvani representative spoke one last time. "Ambassador Vance, you have told us what humanity will do. You have told us what you expect from the galaxy, but you have not told us the most important thing." "And what is that?" Elena asked. "Why? Why would humanity take on this burden? Why would you sacrifice your peace, your resources, your lives, to protect species that laughed at you, that tried to destroy you?" Elena was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke. "Because someone has to," she said simply. "Because the galaxy cannot go on as it has, because the strong cannot be allowed to prey on the weak forever, and because," she paused, "because we remember what it felt like. Standing in this hall, being laughed at, being told we were nothing, being sent warriors to teach us our place. We remember the fear, the helplessness, the desperation." Her voice grew stronger. "No one should have to feel that way. No species should have to face extinction because they were born without claws. No children should have to grow up in slavery because their parents were conquered by stronger beings." Elena raised her head high. "We are human. We were forged in darkness. We survived by refusing to give up. And now, with all our terrible power, we choose to be the light that guards others from that darkness." She looked around the hall one last time. "You measured us by our bodies and found us wanting. You should have measured us by our will. We are the species that tamed fire, split the atom, and broke the light barrier. We do not have claws because we did not need them. We do not have armor because we learned to build it. We do not live long because we learned to make every moment count. Her voice dropped to a whisper that somehow filled the entire hall. And we do not fear the dark, because we are what waits in it. The session ended. Elena walked out of the great hall, past the statue of Gorath kneeling, into the corridor beyond. David was waiting for her. "It's done," she said. "Whatever happens next, it's done. They're afraid of us," David said. "More afraid than ever." "Good. Fear keeps them honest." Elena paused. "But maybe, someday, fear will turn into respect, and respect will turn into trust, and trust will turn into something like friendship. You think that's possible? After everything?" Elena looked out a window at the stars burning in the void. "I think humans are very good at building things," she said. "We built civilizations in ice ages. We built nations across deserts and mountains. We built a path to the stars when everyone said it was impossible." She turned to face David. "We can build a better galaxy. It will take time. It will take patience. It will take generations. But we can do it. Because that's what humans do. We endure. We adapt. We survive. And we build something worth surviving for." David smiled. "That sounds like a lot of work." "It will be." Elena smiled back. "But I think we're up to it." She walked toward the docking port where the Hope waited. Behind her, the Galactic Council continued to debate. Species argued about what Elena had said. Some were angry. Some were grateful. Some were simply confused. But all of them understood one thing. The galaxy had changed. The old order was dead. The new order had begun. And at the center of that new order stood humanity, not as conquerors, not as rulers, not as the apex predators who had taken the place of the Keth Veri, as something else entirely, something the galaxy had never seen before. Protectors, guardians, monsters who chose to be heroes. The stars burned cold and distant in the void. But for the first time in galactic history, those stars felt a little bit safer, because humanity was watching, and humanity would never stop watching, never stop protecting, never stop being what the darkness feared. The prey had become the predator, and the predator had become something more, something better, something worth believing in. This was the new order. This was humanity's gift to the galaxy. This was the future they would build together, one day at a time, one choice at a time, one act of protection at a time, until the galaxy learned to trust, until the galaxy learned to hope, until the galaxy learned that even monsters can become guardians. And in the darkness between the stars, where humanity waited and watched, a quiet promise echoed across the void. "You are not alone. You are not forgotten. And we will never let you fall." The galaxy trembled no more. The prey had become protectors, and the dark had become their home.